Hello, 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 everyone. It's Kate Richburg, and I am live from beadshop.com. Today is Wednesday, June 23rd. Let me get myself up on the screen here. Just bear with me here just a second while I do that. Here I am. Alrighty. It looks like there is a bunch of people jumping in and saying hello. A lot of you are watching from various places around the web, from our Beadshop YouTube channel to our Beadshop page and group. And today we are doing a special broadcast into the Great Bead Extravaganza because we are working with Soft Flex, and we all know what a driving force Soft Flex is behind that wonderful group. So welcome to everybody. And we have someone watching on YouTube. Claire has jumped in. Claire is our new web whiz. Between she and Drea, things are really hopping over on the website at beadshop.com. So Claire, it's great to have you watching in the audience. It looks like our Gita is a little bit under the weather today, so Drea is going to jump in and do some Facebook moderating for us as well. So it's great to have Drea here, but we're also thinking healing thoughts to our Gita across the miles. So let me take care of some housekeeping, and then I know you're all waiting for this necklace. So, of course, you can find us on our live broadcasts, go out into the world on our YouTube channel, as well as our Facebook group and beadshop.com Facebook page. If you're if you're watching us on our YouTube channel right now, give us a like and a subscribe. It really helps others find this wonderful content that we put out for you every week. So please do give it a like and a subscribe. You can go to all of our, like the videos tab, and there are literally hundreds and hundreds of great instructional live videos that we've done over the years for you. And of course, follow us on beadshop.com on our Instagram. Drea does a great job with that and posts little sneak peeks and stuff on there as well. So you can follow us all on our social. And of course, I'll show this again before we leave, but you'll want to go to beadshop.com for information on the project and the products from this broadcast. Sign up for our newsletter, you guys, because Drea is always up to something over there for our special newsletter readers. So you can sign up right on our homepage as well. So I think that does it for some housekeeping things here. Oh, and great, Claire, you're getting some props. People are saying how much they love the way the site's looking, so it's great. We do miss our Karen, but Drea and Claire have continued our wonderful legacy. So it's great to have all y'all here with us. So, okay, are you ready? Because I'm ready. I was really excited about this piece, okay? And this is modeled on Janice's piece here, and let me put it on a neck first so you guys can see it. I'll refresh your memory. Janice made a piece called Bend in the River, and she did this a while back with Soft Flex. Sorry, the back of this isn't very pretty. So let me just put this forward so you guys can see it. So this piece Janice did a while back, and it's kind of like a super ultra Soft Flex float, right? There's beads and chain, and we'll take a little bit of a closer look at this as well. But this one is called the Bend in the River, okay? And so I picked up, Janice threw this gauntlet down, and I picked it up, right? We got some new, really great Czech Glass in that we just love, and I have some of those new things there. And so when we got it in, I said, you know what? I'm going to make one of these pieces. And I feel like this is the perfect piece to wear for summer. I don't know. Some, we're still being cautious, but we're getting outdoors. We're, feeling the summer. And it's I think, a really great summer necklace. You can scale this up or down, just depending on what you want to do. And I'm going to talk about that. So let me talk about this. It looks like Gita's popped in. Oh, Gita, I hope you're feeling okay. I hate it when anyone is under the weather, but we're glad at least that you're here. Let me move this over just a little bit. So there we go. Center myself, right? So let me put this. Let me spotlight this my work table in front of all you all, and I'll show you. Let me grab Janice's first. Okay, and then my velvet pad looks a lot cleaner in real life than it does on the on the camera, so I'm sorry about that. But I like the way that this the gray reflects nicely with the lens. So this is Janice's Bend in the River right here, and you can see with her piece what she used was a couple of different chains. The 2 lanterns and then this long view. And then she did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strands of a float here. And the one thing that I want you to notice with this piece is that on Janice's, can you see how each strand is one type of bead, right? So she didn't mix her metaphors here, really, right? So it looks like it's kind of all mixed when it's worn together, but it's really easy to string because there's just a single bead on each strand. Okay, so so mine, and you can see the really pretty project map that Claire did yesterday, and the beauty shot, you can see that as well. But I wanted to show you guys this so you can see it. And on Janice's, you can see here at the bottom, the dangles here, she used some briolets. So you could always add briolets to yours as well when you're making it. And she also used this large jumbo swivel, which I like. And she used this really nice, I think this is the smooth sailing chain. And I think this is the project that turned Janice on to this jumbo swivel. When I added this jumbo swivel to our lineup here at Beadshop, Janice was like, I don't know. And then she used it in this piece and she was like, this is the best clasp I've ever used. So you're welcome, JP. But I toned mine down a little bit. You could use this large one if you wanted, but I made the focal, the kind of the dangle a little more of the focal than the clasp. So I used the regular swivel on this. Okay, but you could use whatever you liked there. So what I did was I took a leaf from Janice's book, but of course I had to expand. So I also used 5 strands of beads, right, of beads that are strung on our soft flex wire. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But I added, so I used these drops, and I'm going to get a little closer with this, okay? And you can see I used a seed bead in there to add a little bit of light and a little bit of sparkle. And I only did this on a couple of the strands, or in a couple of places, but I just did some that were very plain with just the size 8 seed beads. And you can see that's the 8-2604, that sparkling celery, which I am all over that color. And then I used 2 of our new spindles, and I had the project up, of course, on my screen, but what a surprise. I have to go right over to it. This is the spindle in the transparent light green AB. This is a brand new one. That's this one that I used. And then I also used the transparent with silver AB, which is just delish. And I think the 2 of these work out really well together. And then you may remember for Mother's Day, we did a really fun giveaway with some of these hibiscus beads. Well, we had we had a few left over, and you guys just loved them. So we thought, you know what? let's put these up because they go so nicely with these spindles. So this is the hibiscus in the AB. Let me get the right name for it. It's the transparent etched gold luster is what it is. And on one side it's super gold, and on the other it's that transparent with the AB. So it's really beautiful. It's just such a lovely bead. And then, of course, we have another new one in here, which is the ivory mercury with an AB finish, which is this little gem right here, and it's the 5 millimeter, the 5 millimeter rondelle here. And so again, I wanted this to have kind of an ethereal look. You know, it's summer, for goodness sakes, right? And so this piece, you can see how I was wearing it with this in the front earlier when I came on, or you can wear it in the back and have it dangle down your back, you know, whatever works for you. I want to go to the project here just real quick. So we named this piece Kalani, and Kealani is a beautiful, it's a gender neutral name of Hawaiian origin, and it translates in a few ways. And Drea and I were talking about the name of this piece, and we both came up with like ethereal and lives in the clouds and all of this. So Drea did a little searching around, and she found the name Kalani, and so it translates into clear skies, white heaven, clear heaven. So I don't know, it feels kind of, it has kind of an ethereal look. So that's why we named it, as well as having the hibiscus, of course, when the hibiscus just tosses me right over to Hawaii. Andrea is saying Kealani, and it's true. In Hawaiian, you need to pronounce every vowel and every consonant. So I am always terrible with pronunciation. So thank you, Drea, for making sure that's correct, because I am a terrible sometimes when it comes to names, or at least pronunciation. You can also see, you guys, that I did the melon beads, and Dessa just pointed these out. I really like the melons. They're a good, not too big, not too small bead. And so I use that turquoise Picasso one, but you could also use any of the, any of the melons that we have. This really is, as we like to say around here, a great choose your own adventure kind of a project. The drops that we have, we've got two new ones. And I'm going to go into the steps on this, but I just wanted to share some of the new beads with you. These are two new drops that I jumped in and grabbed some new Czech Glass. And I told Janice, I hope you don't mind, but I ordered some new Czech Glass beads, and, because it's always easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, right? And so she was all, whatever, just put them in, we'll get them up, whatever. So I thought that these, I don't know, I guess I was feeling fancy, because again, we're starting to venture out a little bit, to social settings and stuff. And I don't know, I just loved how these new drops, this is kind of a matte black with gold, and then kind of this matte, kind of semi-transparent white with the gold. And they look great with these melons that I just grabbed off the wall, as well as they look great with these spindles and this new 5 millimeter. So you can just kind of play around. I mean, look at this. Look, I also got these long drops. I wanted to add these long drops into the project, but we're trying not to add everything but the kitchen sink in our projects. But that drop would look so good on the fringe here, I think. It would also look good just in this pile. You can get like these gray ones. I don't know. I feel Chris and I it's coming up on our anniversary soon, and so we're going to venture out for the first time in a long time since the pandemic to a restaurant. and eat for our anniversary. One of our favorite restaurants in San Francisco is the Tadich Grill. So this, so I'm thinking about what am I going to wear to my first dinner back out, right? And so I don't know. I was just thinking fancy pants. So so I like this, right? I like this together. You can also, I pulled in, and you guys know how I kind of like to play around with this. I pulled in just like if you wanted to lighten it up so it wasn't maybe so somber, you could throw in, these are the mixed, these mixed green drops. They have like the 3 different colors in there, and they go really beautifully with that spindle. You could also, everybody's having a moment with these white spindles because Cindy and her really beautiful Odyssey that she made that we showed last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago we showed it. Maybe it was last week. But these white spindles I just love. And you can, do a beautiful monochromatic palette. And Jance is saying she thinks it's a subtle palette. And I agree. It's not really somber. It's just kind of subtle is what we've got going on. We can also change, this is that rosewood bronze, and that rosewood I just love. So you can add just a touch of blush or color, and then you could pop it up. We've got these new ladybug spindles as well, right? So this one is also really pretty. Simply saying, what, no shadows? I know, crazy, right? I could throw a shadow in there. But look at this palette. It's just very sweet, but without being overly sweet, right? It's just, I think it's really pretty. And these two, this ladybug and the rosewood bronze, are, I think, are really an effective color, because they're kind of beside each other on the color wheel. And also look how great that looks with the black. So you could take these guys out, and you could sophisticate it up. Maybe that's a good word for that too. That looks great as well. All right. I knew someone would know Tadich Grill, one of the oldest restaurant in San Francisco. It's our favorite. It's a tradition. We've made many, many good memories there. So anyway, so that's a little bit of playing around with the new beads. I hope, and some of our old beads. So I hope you love them as much as I do. You can't go wrong with Czech Glass. And the cool thing about these is, especially with the spindles, is they also make really good earrings. So I'm going to share with you some of my tricks for earrings with these guys as well. One of the things, though, when you're choosing the beads for this project, I want you to not, if you love my design or my color palettes or whatever, I think that's great. Do it and jump in. But like I said earlier, this is a great one for kind of playing around with your own color palette. It's a great one to dig into your stash and see what you can augment this palette with, and choose, like, if you don't love this chain, choose a different chain. I've grabbed a couple of other chains here too that I want to show you. Can you tell I had to run and get some head pins? So I was just vamping there, right? So let me move this over. I also grabbed this paperclip chain, which I really like a lot. I think this is good. Right, that's really beautiful as well. And then I grabbed the large one here. So when you shop our projects, and Drea and I are creating a really fun broadcast. We're going to do it on Free Tip Friday. Janice can't be with us for Bead Doctor on the first Friday of the month, but Drea and I on the 2nd of July, which also happens to be my anniversary day, we are going to show you a lot of stuff about how to shop the website and do all of these fun things. So you can, it's like website 101, really, like Drea is saying. So, but when you go to the page, the project page, you can see everything that's in the project over to the left, then to the right, then over to the left, there's a list that just kind of links you to the different categories. So it's really easy for you to kind of, put your own spin on things, right? By choosing your own stuff. So let me start. I want to take a look because we're going to delve into this in a few different processes. But the thing that I had my real aha moment, and I don't know how Janice. Well, I kind of think I know how Janice did hers, but and so these roller beads we're going to use as like a cone to pull everything together. Okay, and so I'm going to show you that. And we're going to kind of work backwards, but I want you to know what we're working towards. So I'll show you. Oh, and Geeta's asking, how do I spell the name of Tadich? So Tadich Grill is Tadich. They also came out with a really great, I got it for Chris, a really great cookbook over their many, many years of classic San Francisco recipes. So I'm going to be having a cold, dry martini, and I could taste it. Can you tell I'm ready? I'm ready to go to a restaurant. But let me show you. But back to the, I could talk about restaurants all day. But let me get to these. So envision these guys here, the ends, but I want to show you, I took some photos while I was finishing this up yesterday, okay? Because I want you to kind of hold these in your mind. There we go, so that's not distracting. Then we'll move forward. So you can see this photo I just put up on the screen, okay? The one on top is the chain, right? And the one on the bottom is all of the crimped pieces together, okay? And they are connected to two pieces of wire. So that top chain I've just put in a wire wrap loop, and then the bottom you can see I've crimped, and it's hard to see in the photo, but there's three crimp tubes there, two strands under two strands that are crimped together twice, right? One section, the second section, and then one, since there were 5 strands, I just crimped on there singly, if that makes sense. Okay, so then what I do is I come in and I slide. Oh, you know what? My photo is not right here. I slide. Well, I'll just show you. I slide, here's this one, there we go. I've slid both of the roller beads up and over that connection. And can you see how on that photo, again, this is a little bit distracting right there, so I'm going to take it out. If you can see on the photo, like right here on this top portion, you can see the wire loop is protruding out of the roller, and then the soft flex is going into that roller. Okay, so I've got the roller beads, then I've got a 5 millimeter bead that's kind of holding it all together. Okay, so now there at the bottom, you can see here, or the last photo I'm putting up, this last one, I've come in and I've wire wrapped to take up that space, because you can see here how I had that space. I made the loop, and now I'm going to wire wrap, and I've done that wire wrap closure. Now, the thing that bugged me when I was doing this, and you can see this really well in this photo, see how the rollers have a space in between, all right? And they kind of moved around. So I did a little bit of an extra step that has remedied that, and I'm really, really happy with it, okay? And I'm going to share that with you, how to stabilize those. So I hope that that makes sense to you guys. So now that I've kind of shown you where we are headed, let me kind of break this piece down. So the soft flex and the crimps that I've used, you can use, I used 0.014 for this, okay? But if you want it to be a little heavier, you could use the 0.019. It doesn't make that much difference. I used in the original color that the satin silver, right? But you could use any color soft flex that you wanted to use. And the crimps are the 2 millimeter crimps, okay? So you could, since this is the 0.014, and if you wanted your crimp to be smaller, you could go down a crimp tube size. But I think that these 2 millimeter crimps, I think they visually are a good weight for this project. Okay, does that make sense? And you could use, there's a couple of questions, you know, we love our soft flex here at Beadshop, but if you have any other type of nylon coated wire stringing material, it'll work, right? And just play around with it, but we have chosen to use soft flex for this one. You could also, if you didn't want the wired look, you could do this with the silk with needle, and you could knot a float this way and just knot them on. You could do that as well. Okay, so what I did, let's look at some measurements and some length and stuff here, because I know Lynn always gets me back on track with, Kate, how long is that? So let's talk length here. Okay, so what I've got here, the way I worked with this, and a lot of times, you know, when I'm making a piece, I make a pile of stuff, right? And I kind of string from there. But this one has to be a little, it doesn't have to be, but it helps if you're a little more measuring a little bit more on this, right? So let me straighten this out so you guys can see. Because we don't want to make the piece too long. And I actually did make my piece too long, and I had to do a little bit of surgery on it, which wasn't the best, but I'm going to point that out to you. So here's the necklace, and what I like to say, door to door, all right? And so this piece, when we wear it, from where the clasp would go here all the way off the screen to where the clasp would connect, is about 21 inches. Okay, so you need to decide where you want this to hit. But the beaded section of this is about 18 and a half. The closure, if I bring this around, and you can see, you want enough extra soft flex in there to be able to close it, to have enough to crimp. But if we look at this, that adds about 2 inches or so. So the stringing part, and also the cool thing about this is this clasp can go anywhere along this chain to make it longer or shorter. Okay. So I would say find your finish length and string the beads about 2.5 inches. You want this, you can't see this because I'm off the screen here, but from here to like here, right, this end, you want all of this to measure about 2.5 to 3 inches shorter, right, than you want your finished piece to be, if that makes sense. Okay, so what I do, and you can see here on this one, and I don't want you to make this mistake, and I'm going to point it out because you might see it anyway. I had to, as I was crimping, I gave myself an extra segment here. So I actually had to come in with my wire cutters and kind of very carefully remove the crimp tube so I could get that last bit of beads off of there. And I damaged my soft flex a little bit. So if I had been doing this in real life, what I would have done is probably had to have restrung this, though I could have just left one crimp tube on there, and it really wouldn't have been noticed. But I wanted to point that out just so you learn from my mistakes. And you can see here how the chain is going into that loop, and then all of this soft flex is coming down over these beads. Okay, so again, you're going to choose the soft flex you like. I use the 0.014. You're going to use the crimp tubes that you liked. I used the 2mm. And what I did was I cut my soft flex strands and I gave myself, I don't know, probably about an extra 4 inches on either end, maybe 4.5, so that I could figure out my close. Okay, so then what I did was I started crimping in the center, and I'm going to make, like we like to do here, the world's smallest project. I'm going to do this kind of short because I want you to kind of see this, but I don't want to have to recreate a whole necklace. Okay, so what I do is I have all of my strands, okay, and I have them laid out. So I'm going to get rid of this for just a second. Okay, and I'm going to move this over, and I'm going to put these here. And so what I did with my design board is I just started to kind of lay out my pieces here so that they all, one in each trough, so that they all kind of started to, so I could work row by row with this, okay, if that makes sense. And I don't have a lot of beads left over. These are actually the beads I have left over from my strand. And then what I did, so like for instance with this spindle, to start, I grabbed a strand, right? I put my center bead on like this, and then I let it flow to the center, and then I came in and I put my crimp tubes on both sides. And that's how I started kind of every strand. So I had a starting point. I didn't start at the end because I have to, as I string, and I'm not going to go over the fine art of crimping too much in this one. We have a really great skill builder over on Beadshop that really talks about how to perfectly crimp every time. But I'll tell you, these Xuron pliers are the way for me to go with those. And we like the Xuron 4-in-1 crimper. That's our crimper of choice. Okay, so now you can see that that's in there. Okay, that's my center. So now, let's say I've strung all of this up, right? My second strand, maybe I don't want these beads lined up with this bead. So I'll come in and I'll put on my melon and I'll kind of lay this out and I'll go, okay, that's where my starting point is. Okay, so I'll put that on. And I'll start there. I'll crimp that one in place. I'm going to crimp at Kate speed here today because I want to get through all of this for you. Okay, and then I'll add my other one. And then I just build out, like I'll put a bead over there and then a bead over there, and so I'll build out from the center. And once your strands are all kind of bunched together, though that's not really that elegant of a term, but once they kind of all bunch together around your neck, you're not going to see each individual placement of the beads, so don't sweat it too much, okay? Just, let it flow. That's what this project is all about. It's not about measuring one bead against the other or trying to get perfect placement. Because again, when they all fall around your neck, you're not going to be looking at the individual strands, if that makes sense. Okay, so you can see I'll come in here and I will crimp these. Okay, and turn and crimp. Now, if you have multiple beads on here, so let's take a look at that. Here's the one with the rondelle. Okay, I used some seed beads there, and so if you're doing a multiple bead unit, you don't want that bead unit to be too tightly crimped, right? So you want it to visually, I'm going to put that one right there. You want it to be visually tight, right? So there is that you don't see a lot of space in between, but physically you don't want to shove these beads one against the other so tightly that the segment is going to be stiff on the piece. Okay, so I'm going to put on my crimp tube, and that's just all you really have to do is kind of be aware of it in your mind, right? So if I'm crimping and I'm pulling this section tight, right, I just kind of ease up on that and lift my crimp just a little. So see, I've got a little bit of room there, right? So that's all you really have to do is just be aware of it if it's a multiple bead segment. And you can see on mine, I really wanted to make sure that was true on these that had the drops, so the drops could move around. Okay, if that makes sense. Okay. So we've got some of these guys together. Let me, I'm just going to crimp this guy over here just so I've got some beads on this. Okay. Let me get my crimp. Actually, I'll just do a little segment of the seed beads instead. So let's do that, crimp it, and crimp it. And I like the seed beads. They add a little bit of texture to the piece. Janice didn't use those in her original bend on the river. Bend in the river. I don't think she used seed beads, but you know, as I said before, any of your little beads. This is also a great way to kind of, if you have singles or just twins of beads left over, but they're all kind of in the same color palette or a harmonious color palette, you can use them there. So you can't go wrong with this. I was a little slapdash when I was crimping this, so let me fix that and let me turn it, bend it around. There we go. Okay. So you can see I've got my little pieces here. Okay. Just like this. And Melanie's asking, so James is asking first, am I using heavy wall crimps? Yes, I am. The answer to that is yes. And to answer Mel's question, so I don't need to add a second piece of scrap wire in there to crimp. I do not, since they are heavy walled crimps. Okay. And so Janice is asking a good question too. How do I manage the space between my bead station by having a spacer guide? You know, I didn't. What I did was, and it's a good question to bring up. What I did do, and I'll show you with this one, I kind of used my fingers and I kind of like, I knew like, okay, this was a space, and I kind of visually, when I added my next round, right, I come in and I kind of grab the soft flex where I think the crimp should go, if that makes sense. You could do a little spacer, you know, write on a little piece of paper so you have a visual that you can measure against. But again, when this piece goes around your neck, it doesn't really need to be so perfectly spaced. If this were just a single strand float, I'd want to pay much more attention about my spacing between the stations. But here it's not as critical. So see how visually I kind of looked at it and I go, okay, that's that space, and now this is this space. So I'll come in and I will crimp. Okay, and give it the hug. Okay, so then here's my next melon and my next crimp, and hold it up towards the sky and rest my, come in and don't push down too hard, so there's just a tiny bit of space there, and there you go. So that's how I did it. But if you're a measurer and you like to measure and you know you like all of that little business in there, that's okay too. You can do that, but you can see visually, I think that looks good together. Okay. And Mel's also saying it's a great a great observation here. You could use different colored soft flex for sure, and you could use these different colors as a design feature. 100%. I think it would look a lot. It would look great with that. So let's move to putting the chain and these pieces together, okay? And let me show you this here, bring this back into the shot. I had 5 strands here. I'm just going to work with 3. So it's going to look a little narrower, okay? But I am going to add the 2 chains on at the end. Okay, so here are these strands, and when I'm coming to the end of my piece, all right, and I'm bringing all of these together, this is where I ran into trouble, okay? I had made some strands, like I'd put beads on too close to where I wanted to close it. So you want to make sure when you bring them together, you've got some space, at least maybe about a ½ inch here, so all of the strands can come together. If you have one strand that has a lot of bare soft flex here, that's okay, because again, it's going to get kind of blended in to the bunch of beads that you have here that you're bringing together. So make sure that you have, like I said, at least a ½ inch, and you don't have all of the beads running into each other right there, if that makes sense. All right. So then I had to make a decision on the chain. And so I also, with this My Fair Lady chain, it's wide at the end, right? And over here, I felt that I didn't think that either of these ends would taper that well, especially up against this rustico chain. So what I did was I performed a little chainectomy, and I cut this section of the chain because I wanted this slim section right here to be what kind of hung out near the roller bead. So I'm just going to come in with my heavier duty wire cutters, give that a cut, covering it to make sure that none of my little pieces of wire fly up into my face. But I've isolated, that's the link I want to connect to. Okay. So think about that when you're connecting your chain. How does that best taper? So now it's pretty simple. I'm going to grab, I use 24 gauge wire, but you could also use 26 if you wanted. And the color doesn't really matter as long as it blends. Okay, so I'm going to use this titanium, but you could also use the silver, whatever works for you. Okay, so I'm going to prepare, and I'm going to wire wrap these guys closed. So, and again, I'm going to do this at Kate speed. Okay, so that we have a great tutorial on making a wire wrap loop, but essentially I'm going to make that right angle bend in the wire. I'm going to get my round nose plier, which is way over here, and I'm going to go up and over the top. And I don't need a really big loop. The loop I made on the other one is a little probably too big. Let me lift this. There we go. Okay. And then I can just come around so I've got my loop. Okay. Now I'm going to connect my chains. You could connect these using jump rings if you wanted, but it'll just make it a little more messy at the end. Messy, again, is not the right word, but it'll have a lot of components here at the end, and I think that this is a safer and more elegant solution for that. So I'll come in and I'll hold all of that with my, you kind of have to just tightly with your chain nose, just isolate all of those chains there, pull it nice and tight so nothing moves around as you're wire wrapping. And then I'm going to come in, and I only need to wire wrap about twice here because space is really, we don't need like a mile-long wire wrap, just so it's nice and it looks nice and neat and it's sturdy. Okay, and the loop is large enough so that these chains have movement, if that makes sense. Okay, and I'm just going to come in and I'm going to cut away this extra, being mindful not to cut it so it hits me in the face. And I'm just going to push that little end right down there. Okay, so there we are. So this is ready to go. Okay, and I'm going to set this aside. All right. And I'm sorry, I can't see who made this comment, but organize my spaces. Well, I do try and organize, especially for these broadcasts. And I do honestly have several product projects. I'm going to lift the camera so you guys can see what's behind. See, look, it's not as, see, look, it's dark, right? It's not that pretty, right? I've got some old shadows here. I've got another item over there. So, but I do have my tools all in one place, and I have everything piled appropriately. But I'll show you that it's all smoke and mirrors here when I do this broadcast. But that's okay. But I, like you, I need. That was Cynthia. Cynthia, yes, she does know my secrets. I do like to have a clean space when I work so that my head can design. Because usually, as you guys know, I'm designing on the fly, fast with these, right? So I kind of need to have a clear head when I'm doing this, though that's not always true. So for these, let me show you. Oh, Cynthia Thornton. Yes, there we go. That was that is our green girl. There she is. And you guys, Cynthia is going to be joining us for a very special broadcast on the 7th of July. And that's all I'm going to say. We'll do some more info about it, but we have something really special cooked up, and it involves me sending her some beads and us getting some of her new things in on Beadshop. But go check out. Cynthia has a really beautiful. I need to grab mine on her Etsy store. She has this really beautiful bronze heart that she's made. I haven't nabbed mine yet, but go check it out. It's an exclusive for her Etsy site, and it's gorgeous. But we have some really great things coming up at Beadshop from Cynthia, and I'm really excited. And I know Janice is too. We really made, I think, some wonderful selections for some new pieces. So can you tell I'm excited? I'm totally distracted now. It's just gorgeous. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to come in and I'm going to crimp this loop before I actually add it to the wire. You could loop your wire, but I'm going to show you why I'm doing this too, okay? Because it's a little bit easier for me to see what it is I'm doing before I add that wire in. And so I'm going to crimp these just nice and small, not too small so I can't get the wire in there. But see how I've come in, and let me show you that really up close, all right? See how that is nice and even, how the loops aren't crossed or anything like that. It's a nice, clean, tiny loop. And so I've gotten a double strand in there. Okay, so now I'm going to come in. I'm going to crimp with that loop facing towards me because it has multiple strands in there now, so we want to be a little more directional. And then we close it, and then I give it a little hug, and then I very carefully clip away the extra. Okay, so there's one. Now I will, and it's a little bit easier also for me to kind of measure as well if it's not on the wire. So I'll come in. This one's now just a single. I'll make my loop. And I'll kind of hold it up here. And I'll say, yep, that looks about right. Slide that crimp up. So again, that loop is pretty small. about like that, right? Can you see that? Now I'm going to crimp. And ideally, I want my soft flex laying side by side under my crimp tube, so it crimps nice and evenly without without twisting under that crimp tube. Okay, so I'll make all of these. All right. Now, what I do is I come in, because I'm doing this because the opening in the roller, see, here's the roller bead, is not huge, right? So I need to make sure that this bulk, because in the actual project, I have 2 more strands, right, that I've got to get in here. So I don't want a big bulky loop underneath. So what I do is I come in, I get my wire, I put everything I need on the wire, and I kind of smush it down. And smush is the technical term for what I'm doing here. Okay, I don't want it so tight that there won't be movement here, but I want it nice and snug, right? So can you see how that it's kind of like a U-shaped loop, right? Then I come in with this short end, I'll bring it around, and I'll do that same little gripping with the flat nose plier and just give myself like 2 little wraps there. Okay, and it doesn't have to look beautiful because it's going to be hidden under those rollers. Okay, can you see that there? There we go. That's in focus. Okay, and so I'll turn, clip away that extra. Again, you know the mantra, be mindful of where that wire is going. And I want to just come in and clip away, tuck in that extra piece. Okay, so what I have here is this, and it looks like that picture I showed you earlier. Okay, that's it. So now comes the fun part. Okay, and I do this on one side, and then I come in and I'll do the exact same thing on the opposite end. Okay, but now's the time to add these rollers, and of course I used my piece here, my little, I don't have one little rondelle bead I can use. Well, I'm just gonna cut it off because I need it for the bottom. That's okay. There we go. So we've got our rollers, okay, and we've got a rondelle. It doesn't have to be a rondelle. It just needs to be something. It could be a melon bead, it could be anything, but we need something to kind of plug up that hole, okay? And Janice used a rondelle on hers when she did it, so I did the same. I had a few left over, okay? So now what we're going to do is I come in and I slide one roller on and I pull everything down. So see how your beads, your wire wrap loop rather, is going to kind of hold this one outside, and then the crimps that you've made are going to just come right inside that roller like that. Okay, since I had more strands, this is 3, I had 2 more in here, it took up just a little more room. So this is going to be a little bit loose, which is why I want to show you this little trick so that I did to kind of hold things together with the rollers. So this comes on, and I'll just put this on here like so. And so now what I do to alleviate that space is we're going to get a little bit of Zap glue. Okay, now Zap can be really super handy for something like this to kind of fuse all this stuff together. I didn't do this on the other one, but I am going to put just a little dot of zap on these crimps right here, just to hold it in place. With the multiple strands, with the many strands that I used, it held just fine earlier on the one I made, but I don't want this to be an issue when I'm showing this to you as a sample. So I'm just going to add a little drop of that zap there, and it's going to kind of hold this bead on and in place. So let me get it there before the zap zaps. And I'm just going to let it sit there for the moment. I'm going to get myself a little bit more glue out of there. Okay, like this. And again, zap, you want to make sure that you're using this in a well-ventilated area, because it is a little stinky. But see how you can see down into the bead now, right? So I'm going to add a little bit of zap right there to just stabilize this. Again, I didn't need the stabilization with the 5 strands, but since this is my Kate demo, I don't want this bead to go all over. But what I did do is to fuse these 2 rollers as one. I'm putting a little bit of zap around the edge of that roller bead, and then I'm going to slide the second roller bead on, and I'm just going to hold it there for a minute. Okay, so until it's not, look, the zap just, it holds, it's there, it's not going anywhere, right? Look at how nice that is. So these 2 beads, what were 2 beads are now 1, right? And I'm going to let that, I'm going to get this glue out of my way, because if you know me, you know that I'll glue myself to the table. But now I'm ready to come in and see that closure. We just need a bead that fits on there. And this rondelle, you can see, has a nice generous hole, not so big that it's too big for the wires, but 2 of the 24 gauge just fit beautifully on there. And look at how nice of a closure that is now. Okay, so now this isn't moving all around and wavy gravy over here, right? Just kind of, you know, difficult for me to deal with. It's all nice and tight, so I can come in and make a really nice looking wire wrap. Okay, so I'm going to come in, I'm going to treat these 2 wires as if they were one, right? So it's not, they're not bent or twisted or whatever. I'm going to do that. I'm going to come over the top, bringing them around the loop and under my plier, large enough of a hole of a loop so it will hold the clasp nicely, but not so big that all you see is loop. Can you see that there? And I'm going to turn it to the side. See how it's nice and neat? Then I'll get my clasp and I'll slide this on. I grabbed a brass one just to show you the brass, so I'll throw that on. Right, so that comes on. You could connect this with a jump ring if you wanted, right? But I like it being an all-encompassing loop so nothing pulls out. Now you just have to very carefully grab onto everything without, so you can hold it stable, but having it not, you don't want to crush anything. So now again, I'm going to wrap these strands of wire as if they were one, and it's just going one below the other. I want to make sure that I wrap all the way so that any space in between this rondelle and my 2 rollers are closed, right? So now what I did to make it look visually a little bit beefier was I came back up from the bottom, back up to the top of the loop. You can even just do it with your hands there. So the wire wrap is a little visually a little beefier. And then I'll cut this away. If you just want to do it once, you know, go from the bottom of the loop to the top of the beads, you can do that too. But I like the look of having a little bit of a more solid wrap. And then I'm just going to come in and coax my wire loop back so the wires are sitting side by side. And they got a little smushed, but they're all fixed now. Okay, so you can see that there, how it looks nice and clean and well finished. Let me lay this down and you can see it. Okay, let me get a little closer. There we go. And when I had 3 wires to close, did I make a wire loop with all 3? So I didn't have 3 wires. What I did was, and maybe let me throw that photo up here so you can see it. The one I did earlier. What I did was I had, here we go. This is the one. See how I wire wrapped this wire here, has the soft flex on it, the one at the bottom. I made the loop and I wrapped it underneath, and then I cut away the wire that I wrapped with. So I only actually had 2 wires going through everything. So I omitted one of the wires here and one of the wires here. So if the wire wrap loops were both closed, and then I had 2 wires left that I brought into my beads, if that makes sense for you there. Because 3 wires would not fit through this small one. If you did have 3, right, and you used a larger bead here, it could work. Okay, but I just I wanted it to be a little smaller. Okay, so now on the other side, what you'll do, and I don't have any chain left, so I'll just pull this brass chain in. I came in and decided, you know, what length I needed for my dangles, and then I cut that length. And the opposite side, I did the opposite side by wire wrapping this in. So you can see, let me change this up so you can see this. Here's the one with the chain right here. And then here's the one with the swivel. Okay, so that's it. Right? And so what I did, let's kind of examine what I've made here. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to cut this one off and wrap it so you guys can see it. But see how I just came down, see if I can get these in some kind of order. There we go. Maybe, I don't know. Why can't I lay these out? There we go. So you can see there's a spindle, there's the hibiscus. I wanted the spindle to lay a little bit lower, so I actually, since it's a longer bead, I wrapped it below the hibiscus, and then I just did some of these melons like this here. Okay, so however you want to cluster this is fine. I do want to show you though this wrap. Okay, this one on the drop. So let me cut it off and I'll just rewrap it on there. Because again, since we're using 24 gauge, though you could use 26, let me just cut all of this away. Being careful not to nick the bead. Okay, but since I'm using 24, I'm going to do that whole holding the wires, the 2 wires, as if they were one kind of thing again. Okay, so let me position this so you can see. So I'll come in with that 24 gauge, like so. And I don't know, I cut way too large of a piece here. You probably need about, I don't know, 4 inches or so, maybe. Okay. And I'll come in and I'll pull these up right here. Let me position this. It's wanting to focus on those other. Sorry, I'm going to try and stay in focus here for you. There you go. So now I'm just going to come in and I'm going to kind of squeeze these two wires together with my hands. Now, watch what I do. You're just going to pretend, I'm serious, in your mind, pretend that these two wires are one. Okay? So I'm going to bend just as I would a regular wire wrap loop. But instead of having just like a head pin or something down here, we've got that little hook of wire with the drop in it, right? So bend, and we're going to go up and over the top of the tool. So notice, you guys, how the heads of my tool are one on top of the other, okay? Not side to side like this, but one on top of the other, north to south, okay? Now, bring your loop up and over the top of that tool, okay? Now, take this loop off the top and put it on the bottom. See what I did there? Now, pull this around so you've made a complete loop underneath that tool, okay? Now I'm just going to center it just a little bit. There we go, by moving the loop over just a little to my right and pulling these back down. So when I take this off of the tool, see how I've got a loop on the top, and see how that looks there? How the loop and everything is down here holding that drop. Now we need to connect. This is something I always forget. I'm sure that you do too. But I'm going to come in. I'm going to add this right here to the bottom before I wrap everything closed. So see, both wires coming in, pretending they're just one wire, right? Pulling that chain inside the loop. Now, I'm going to hold everything securely with my chain nose plier, right? So that loop isn't going to move. Now, and I'm holding this with my right hand because I'm right-handed. With my left hand, but there's no right or wrong for that. With my left hand, I'm just going to bring these wires around and see how the wires, since they're laying side by side, they wrap side by side. And you want to make sure you don't want to wrap them too low, or else the drop won't have room, okay? And then you can wrap them back up if you want. It can be intentionally a little messy, so it has that kind of free-form look to it. And then I'll come in and I'm going to clip away both of these wires, being mindful, A, where the wires are flying, and B, I don't want to clip this loop. So if you have some practice drops and some practice 24 gauge wire, you guys, your assignment for today or this week or this weekend when you're not sure what to make and you're like, I don't know, I'm not feeling inspired, practice wire wrapping your drops and wire wrap like 5 drops, one after the other, okay? So one after the other, and you will really get that in there. But see, let me get this. Let me get that in there. Okay, and I think it looks great. This kind of heavy hand with the wire here kind of echoes that heavy hand with the wire there, so it all pulls the design in. Okay, so that's it. That is really everything I wanted to share about this. Remember that zap glue. You can see I did this. I didn't even explain it, but I put the glue on there with a little bit with a toothpick, right? So I could really be very specific at about where I put it. So where is that little sample I made? So here it is. And you can see that zap has really set up that it's in there. It's not going anywhere. All right. But it makes a nice like a nice cone. Like you could do this even if we weren't doing this particular kind of necklace, if you were pulling multiple strands up and you needed a cone, you could create that cone with those two rollers by just using a little bit of that zap, gluing those two together, and then doing that same connection underneath and wire wrapping it up at the top. And then you'd have another, a loop or something over here. But I think that would look really great. So there's your little extra. And you can see these are the thistle rollers that I used. They also look pretty magical with these new spindles that we got in. It's a really great match. Okay. And again, use a different chain color if you'd like. This brass is really gorgeous, even with the soft flex that is the satin silver. I like it a lot. And then I just wanted to point out, I used our little head pins that have the ball. I used those for the bottom, but you could also use like a regular flat head pin if you wanted, and then put one of those little seed beads at the bottom. I think that would look great as well. Okay, so I really want you to experiment with this one. This is a great one to take some inspiration from the piece that I made and the piece that Janice made, and just kind of go for it and tell your own story with this float. Again, I'm going to put some of these new beads up there, and you can find all of these, of course, at beadshop.com. If you just look under Czech beads, they're all there. Our new ones are under our just in category, but you can also shop on the project. You can just shop the categories if you use the list over to the left-hand side. Look at that. Look at that grouping with the brass. That's really pretty, I think. Let me throw this other one in there. I can just play with these beads all day. And you could still use this celery, sparkling celery look to it. There we go. Okay. So I hope you guys, Brass SS, that is so true, Patty. I agree. So let me just throw a couple of these things up there for you. Of course, you guys, you can find us on all of our social media. You can follow us on Instagram at beadshop.com. Join our group, The Bead Table, and follow us at beadshop.com on Facebook. And if you are watching on YouTube, our YouTube channel, thank you so much. You can hit subscribe and like, and if you're watching this on the replay, thank you for joining us, and you can always join us live every Wednesday and starting back in July on Fridays at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time. Of course, you can always shop beadshop.com. We're open 24/7 for your bead shopping pleasure. You can find information on this project and the products from this broadcast. Sign up for our newsletter for the latest discounts, giveaways, and new products. You guys, we've got some fun things coming up. And as I mentioned, we're having Cynthia Thornton join us on July 7th for this live broadcast. I have a little package that I'm sending off to her today that she's going to be playing with and working with on her broadcast. We will also debut some beautiful new pieces that she has that we're adding to our line from Green Girl. And of course, you can always check out Cynthia's Etsy store for some exclusives that she does there and nowhere else. So let's see, let me wrap up these comments. It's great to have everybody here and joining. Yes, I know, Lorraine, I wish the broadcasts were longer. I would love to hang out with you guys all day. It would be fun. So thanks again, everyone. I will see you. I won't see you this Friday for Free Tip Friday, but it does return on Friday, July 2nd. Drea will be with me. And we're going to do some Bead Shop website 101 for you guys. And then I have some fun things planned for the Free Tip Fridays after that. So thank you ever so. I will see you next week with another fun. Oh, and Cindy, you were saying spindle earrings. Let me just show you real quick. I'm sorry about that. I did say I wanted to show you something with the spindle, and I'll just hold it up here so you can see that. See how this My Fair Lady chain has that nice look up here, and how this link really echoes that spindle. I thought that this would make a perfect earring to match this, right? If I hold this spindle up next to it, you can just simply wire wrap and replace this open spindle-like shaped link with this spindle-shaped bead. And I think it would make a great companion earring for this. But thank you for reminding me. It's just this chain link just looked like that spindle to me. You could also just replace it, and go in and link it for like a bracelet or some kind of a chain there. But I think that would make a fantastic earring with it. So there you go. That's it. I think I've got everything now. So thank you again so much. I will see you next week at 10:30 a.m. Pacific. Stay safe, have fun, and we appreciate each one of you. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you soon.